If you're in the market for a classic bike, there's some important considerations you might want to make. Those of us that rode in the 70s might remember that the brakes didn't work in the rain, and the same frequently happened with the electrics. Cross-ply tyres, poor frame design, spindly forks, nylon swing arm bushers meant handling was poor. 80s bikes saw lots of improvements over 70s bikes, but they're still heavy to push when they break down, and sooner or later all bikes do. Not so bad in your 20s, well, it's a different story in your 50s. 90s bikes saw less weight as Honda's FireBlade changed focus from high horsepower to reducing weight, making that power usable. Another advantage of 80s and 90s bikes are the fairings. I live in the UK and rain is something that happens here very frequently, so a fairing makes sense and turns what would be a very soggy, unenjoyable ordeal into something achievable even on the wettest of days. The advantage of choosing a Honda over other Japanese bikes of this era, such as the ZX7R, is the build quality. And it's that build quality that makes owning a Honda the most feasible route of classic bike ownership. The disadvantage is a lack of character with most Hondas. As with all rules, there are exceptions, and the FireBlade is such an exception. The FireBlade has character aplenty, but mixed with the ease of use Honda is renowned for. Consequently, it's no trouble around town, or doing the miles with a good pillion seat, under seat storage, and good fuel economy. These bikes are so easy to work on and have very few problems. I've owned 8 blades over the years, so I know them fairly well. Years ago, lots were thrashed and crashed, but most left now are going to have had an easier life at the hands of more mature owners. Crash bikes often had dented frames across this area. The spars are so wide they lead to a lot of polished frames and carbon frame covers fitted to hide the damage. Wheelies would put cracks in the forks down here on the base. On the back side, on abused bikes, you'll find that there's a crack. Very dangerous. Gearboxes would suffer with falling out of gear between first and second gear. I've looked after bikes. The only issues tend to be the regulator rectifier unit. These can overheat, and they're found just down there. You probably can't see it. Usually the sign of that happening is the rev counter. It will start reading strangely. It will bounce about all over the place. If ignored, the cables that go from the rectifier regulator unit about here to under the rider's seat will all start to burn back. The insulation will melt. Fuel pumps can fail, but they're not necessary. This one has one fitted still, my other one doesn't, and does quite well without it, and they can be bypassed. In fact, Honda dropped using them on the SC33 models. Cam chain tensioners aren't brilliant. Those are located just here. Something that Honda have never been great with. They're a lot better than a lot of earlier Hondas. They're easy to replace. David Silver Spares.co.uk provide replacements at around the 70 quid mark for a genuine Honda one. The rear sprocket carrier bearings can fail, which is in here. You don't tend to notice it if you're checking for play in the rear wheel bearings, but when they fail they can affect the handling, so it's not an easy one to identify. These Foxeye blades have the same chassis and the same engines as the first twin headlight blades, but they have better braking. The discs on the earlier bikes, more holes in, slightly smaller, and they do tend to warp. And they also have better front forks on these. You will have both compression and rebound damping adjusters, which you don't get with the early bikes. Most important is that they had revised gearbox internals on these bikes. The earlier ones used to have this problem with the dropping out of second gear. Not so much of a problem with these. I had a twin headlight RRP 1993 vintage years ago at the same time as this particular bike, and the difference between the two with regards to handling and braking meant you can ride much harder on one of these than what you can on the earlier bikes. It is quite marked, the difference, despite the fact that they look so similar as regards the front suspension setup and brakes. So that's why I prefer these SC28 Foxeye FireBlades over the earlier bikes. Needless to say, it was the RRP I sold, and not this one, and that was a fair few years ago. So if you're in the market for a classic bike, that's why I believe the best choice you can make is the 1994-1995 Honda FireBlade. That's the RRR and the RRS, and this is my Urban Tiger RRS. I've owned this bike since November 2007, and as you can see, it's well looked after. When Honda released the new 2008 FireBlade, they did so with a special day at Donington Park racetrack. As part of the occasion, this particular bike was in show in the museum. It was loaned to Honda for the day, and I got the enjoyment of riding their bike round the track. You'll notice it has an uncut rear mudguard, Honda indicators. The Honda screen has the red logo on it, which is very rare, and it is a standard Honda screen, it's not a copy. And it's not totally standard, of course, in that it's got the road legal Acroprovic silencer with removable baffle and stainless steel headers. When I bought this bike in 2007, it had nitrous oxide fitted, which was too much for the engine, and it blew. Originally, I intended this engine as a temporary replacement whilst I rebuilt the original, and sourced this from a guy who had used it in a steel-framed CBR900 on the racetrack. Needless to say, I've found it suits the bike's character that well, it's still in use. The engine has had some porting work, however I think that's it, as the camshafts are Honda. Carbs are fitted with a Dynajet Stage 1 kit, so main jets are 5 over standard. The air filters are BMC reusable for freer breathing. The bike runs standard gearing, and I prefer it that way. It keeps the revier nature of the SC28 bikes over the later bikes, so that's why the gearing's kept stock. Horses for courses. As I've said, I've owned 8 bikes over the years. Last year I decided to slim down to just 2 FireBlades, selling one of my red, white and blue bikes. I prefer that colour scheme. Most people prefer the Urban Tiger. Most of my riding is done nowadays on my BMW R1200 RT, and before that it was my R1100 RT over there. What's the characterless, ugly and unexciting, they're eminently practical, especially when food shopping. I've been deluding myself into thinking keeping 2 FireBlades was reasonable, and now I've decided to sell my garage ornament Urban Tiger and keep the other red, white and blue bike. The bike will start on eBay auction starting on 19th of June at 1843 and run for 10 days. If you're interested in watching how it progresses, the listing number's in the description. Hope you like the bike. Needless to say, when it was at the Blade Day, I managed to get Taddeo Barber, the designer of the blade, to sign a tail joining piece that I bought especially for the occasion. It's had a HPI check when I bought it. Obviously that was back then, and I don't think I'll have enough strength left in the storage space to be able to start it, so I'll have to do that one separately. Thanks for watching. Okay, so let's show you the bike started from cold. As you can see, stone cold. Choke's a bit funny because it doesn't hold out, you've got to keep it held out, but you don't need to give these much choke at all. Basically you choke it, start it, and then rev it and knock the choke off. Simple as that. So I'll fumble a bit with the over the camera. So it's nice and responsive. Got straight back to a nice idle. So choke is very soon dispensed with on FireBlades. Obviously I'll let it run for a minute and then show you the exhaust output. Indicators. Should have shown you that as well, shouldn't I? Headlights, side light, headlights. Brake lights. Don't think I can manage that with the front brake, so you just have to trust me on that one. On. Pass light. What else? And oh yeah, high beam. I don't think you can see it in this. You never know. Oh, you can. Right, put my clobber on and continue on helmet camera. Okay, you're gonna take you for a ride on the bike now. I'm just recording over, narrating over the top of what I recorded earlier. Unfortunately, I don't have any expensive GoPro or any external mics, anything like that, so this is the only feasible way I've got of doing it. As you can see, it's a dirt track that I have to go down to get to the cars and bikes and onto the road, so that's a big disadvantage to living in the country, keeping a bike clean. So I've always tended to have bikes that get dirty, this is why, main factor why this one doesn't get used as much, because it's just a pain having to make sure it gets cleaned up properly after every ride. The BMW, you know, it's a workhorse, it does its job well, not to get excited about, but it's not like a cherished bike like the FireBlade is. This is obviously just pulling through the village at 30 mph, and the FireBlade will do that lovely. It doesn't struggle, unlike me trying to find the internal visor on my helmet. You know, it'll sit there all the time. It's not like a Ducati. It's focused compared to other Hondas. It's similar sort of focus to the ZX7R, although that is a bit more track focused, a bit more uncompromising, which is quite surprising really, but there you go. As you can see, it's fortunate in that it's not long before we hit decent biking roads when we leave the village. So I've always been fortunate like that ever since I've lived out here. Lincolnshire's a beautiful county. I moved from South Yorkshire and never looked back. It's absolutely stunning. We've got some gorgeous scenery, loads of green everywhere, and it's not ordinarily too bad for policing. Just recently there seems to be a lot more police about. Needless to say, I think they're trying to rake in a few pounds into the coffers after the lockdown. There you go. This is a bit of a bad bend, this. Coming the other way, one day I went and killed my Z3, accelerated too hard out the bend and ended up sticking it in the hedge. Very nice bends, but you do have to get used to them. There's little bits of off camber and bumpy sections, and you know, some of them tighten up a bit more than you're kind of expecting. Great one, you should get to know one. Of course, at the moment the tyres are cold, so got to take it easy. Again, this is another bend that can be a bit tricky. Sometimes you get a bit of gravel on the bend. As you can see, there's a side bit off farm traffic. So one thing you get used to in the countryside is dirty bends and farm vehicles. But yeah, it's really nice road. Love it out here. This is a nice stretcher road. It's difficult to find a stretcher road that's not nice in Lincolnshire. Yeah, of course, engine's not warmed up yet, tyres aren't warmed up, so I'm just taking it easy. It's, you know, you can ride them fast, you can ride them slow, you can cruise on them. It does enjoy being given its head, the riding position, wants it as well. It's down here today. It's it's unfortunate that there's roadworks down here. It is nice sweeping winds. You have to slow down a bit coming from this across. it's all these roads are meant for FireBlades. There's a better bike for them. This nice switch back bends to the right and to the left. just does the long mow. We do have a few older tractors out here that can move very, very slowly, so when you spot a tractor and tailbacks focused and ready for them. Unfortunately, it's a straight section.
2008 model at Donington and then took one for a test
Okay, so you've seen how it rides, how well the suspension and brakes work, how it can run at low speed, especially through all that gravel side of the road, and stone chippings, and you've seen that it pulls very well indeed. So I think that's about everything I can tell you about it. What just occurred to me, you've not seen it ticking over after it's had a run. It's a nice steady tick over. I serviced it a couple of weeks ago. I've changed 2 shims, and for the exhausts that was all, 2 slightly out of spec. Balanced the carbs, changed fluids of course, and new oil filter of course, and new set of plugs. Yeah, now it just needs flies cleaning off at front. So all consumables are good, brake pads, tyres, loads of meat on them, no wear on discs, no lips on them neither. Plenty of meat left on the rear tyre and loads of left end of the chain. Again, nice, in fact I replaced the disc not that long back, rear disc. Pads are all good. Shock's in very good condition for a standard shock. Quite frankly, I rather like the standard shock. I like the ride. I might think it's a bit firm, but you might have noticed occasionally when I was riding it, when you go on a bumpy section, it does tend to shake its head a little bit, but nothing that you need a steering damper for or anything silly like that. There you go. Hope you've enjoyed.